Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy, Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me. Sorry if my mic peaked there for a second. I think it did peak pretty loud, but nonetheless, I am here and I am back. This is part 2 of What If Deku had a Minecraft quirk. Seems like you guys really liked the first part. Yes, this is a very overpowered what if. Yes, this is a what if suggestion that I've gotten in the past. Very, very funny idea, I thought. So, hey, we're here doing it, and here we are here on part 2. So, yeah, I mean, as always, if you enjoy, please show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Helps the channel, helps me, helps us grow, helps all the above, you know what I'm saying, all that good stuff. Yeah, that's really all I gotta say. I don't want to waste much more of your time, and I want to get right into the what if. So, let's get it. Izuku Midoriya and his class is about to take on the USJ, or the rescue facility. Now, this rescue facility is under siege of who we know as the League of Villains. The League of Villains is a very, very notorious group, at least at this point, and they are terrifying. They have very, very, very large sway, but they're scary because of one person and one person really only, being that of All For One. All For One has run this League of Villains and continues to run it, and now these young heroes are going to have to deal with it, and, well, Izuku Midoriya is going to have to deal with it. So, this is when Izuku and his entire class would head into the USJ. They would be told that, you know, it's all about this rescue training and this or that, but then, bam, portals would open up, and people would come out of nowhere, and they would begin invading. Izuku immediately would react to this, and would think to himself that they need to somehow survive, and they need to somehow fend off these villains. So what are they going to have to do? What are they going to do is the big question. And that's exactly what we're going to get into, because Izuku begins immediately with trying to help Aizawa basically face down these villains. And of course, Aizawa is hesitant and tells the kid to, like, you know, not do this, and that he's not going to be allowed to help fight. In which Izuku, you know, he's okay, I get it. But then he kind of ignores Aizawa and jumps into action anyways. He begins to use something known as an elytra and begins to fly around. As he flies around, he begins to rocket everywhere, just kind of observing the area. But then he would begin to see Aizawa fighting, you know, the villains, and he would begin helping them out, shooting these kind of rockets out of his crossbow and just laying waste to a bunch of these villains. Not killing them necessarily, but let's just say hurting them pretty damn bad, right? He would be raining just basically hellfire on them, and he would continue to do so over and over again, clearing out a large group of the villains. On top of that, he would fly around the entire facility, helping anybody who got sucked up into a portal and taken away as well. So he would help everybody out as much as possible, all the way up until he flies around to see that Aizawa is about to get attacked by something known as a Nomu. This Nomu is about to punch Aizawa square in the face, and as he does, well, Izuku would just fly in trying to swoop up Aizawa, but he's unable to do so, at least not quick enough. So he realizes that he needs some help fighting this Nomu. So who does he call on? Well, he decides that he's going to start spawning iron golems, something he hasn't really even tested out, but thinks that this is the best time for reinforcements. He spawns a bunch of iron golems, and then they begin to try and basically cut down the Nomu. But the iron golems, I'm gonna be honest, don't really do a ton to the Nomu because of the quirks that it maintains. But nonetheless, the iron golems give him enough time to heal Aizawa and actually help him massively, and actually buff him up in terms of strength, splashing a potion of strength, speed, regeneration, all of these things on them so that he can continue fighting. And this makes it so Aizawa is quite a bit stronger. Izuku even hands him a weapon if he wants to utilize it, but Aizawa shakes his head, saying that that's really not his style. He can't really use it that well. Aizawa would ask what the hell those things are, in which Izuku would tell him those are iron golems, that it seems like they're doing, you know, decently well against All For One, and well, let's just say he hopes to have some better things in the future in terms of, you know, stuff that is pretty helpful. But for now, that's all he can really muster up, at least at the moment. So they begin to fend off this Nomu, but also fend off Shigaraki and Kurogiri, both being actually subdued relatively easily with a healthy Aizawa and a buffed up Aizawa at that. Izuku actually even begins to throw potions of weakness on the Nomu and also Shigaraki and Kurogiri, making their quirks actually weaker than usual, and on top of that making them more vulnerable to attacks, making it so that actually the Iron Golems survive a little bit longer and actually do a little bit more damage to the Nomu himself. But the real kicker and the real end of it all, which would be, the arrival of All Might. All Might would arrive and be ready for a fight. All Might would arrive and fend off the Nomu and would basically use this potion of weakness and the opening from the Iron Golems to subdue the Nomu really quickly. Izuku didn't even really get a chance to fight the Nomu hand to hand or even, sword to hand, but he didn't really want to test the theory of how strong he truly is. He knew that the Nomu was extremely powerful. He knew how strong he really was, or whatever that creature was, so he didn't want to kind of cross that boundary and be unsafe about it. So he was trying to be as safe as possible, waiting for potential reinforcements and stalling out the Nomu as much as possible. And luckily, that's exactly what happened and exactly what worked. But as Izuku is going to basically try and capture Shigaraki and Kurogiri, they would leave without even a single trace and would even leave behind the Nomu, believing that it seems as if they have issues beyond just All Might now, seemingly realizing how strong some of these students currently are. But they also don't understand the powers that Izuku actually holds, and they don't understand what he can actually do, and that's a big issue for the League of Villains. Because yes, they saw what he could do in terms of, he was flying around and stuff like that, but it looked like he had technology. It looked like it was more support than anything. And yes, they weren't prepared for that, but what the hell was going on? Like, seriously, what the hell was going on? He was able to spawn different things, like they just appeared out of nowhere. Maybe that's some sort of power he has. He's not 100% sure, but the information is limited on this kid. They just know that he's pretty well off in terms of money and that he stood one hell of a chance against actual villains, which is something Shigaraki feels a little bit uneasy about, but of course All For One would let him settle, and All For One would tell him that they have a plan for it all and to not worry a single thing. Now this would lead to the school being forced into a bit of a couple day vacation and a recovery time because, well, they are dealing with a villain invasion and they are dealing with some very sketchy things that just occurred. So they have some downtime. Class 1A has a little bit of a break, but they're all prepping and preparing for, well, the UA Sports Festival. Something that is very exciting and something that Izuku will have massive advantage in, and he'll have to even do a little speech as well, in which when the UA Sports Festival, begins, he begins to give his speech, telling them all that everybody's going to try their best, and they're going to all try their best to, well, win. And that's exactly what he wants to do. He wants to win. At the end of the day, he doesn't want to sit here. He doesn't want to, lose. He wants to win it all. And he hopes that everybody gives their best of efforts as well. And he hopes everybody is ready for an absolute challenge. In which Izuku hears cheers and everybody's cheering everyone on. Everyone's happy, saying that this is great, like he's so humble and stuff like that. And Izuku is happy to see that everybody is excited for what's going to happen, right? Everybody is excited for what's going to occur. And Midnight would announce that the first event is an obstacle course race. Now, the obstacle course race is going to be pretty basic for Izuku. He just puts on his elytra and he takes off flying and just leaves everybody in the dust, but to the point where he actually straight up is faster and done with the whole race in a matter of maybe 30 seconds, maybe even quicker. Depending on how much ground he can really cover, in which Izuku covers that ground extremely fast, and everybody's standing there like, whoa, like what did he just do? What kind of technology was that? Like, that technology could be revolutionary, but of course Izuku didn't actually make this technology. This technology itself is from a video game, so he's kind of, iffy on actually giving it to anybody else, but it's still technology that is extremely high tech. And well, let's say Mei Hatsume is very interested in this technology, especially because she believes that this could be her ticket to making a ton of money and being basically famous and so on, right? And just continuing on with making her babies, which that's her machines or her technology, we all know. Now, he would pass or get the first in the obstacle course race, but this would put a massive bounty on Izuku's head. But this bounty, I'm gonna be honest, doesn't really matter much, because a lot of stuff that Izuku can do, well, it's gonna benefit him in this next thing, which would be the cavalry battle. Now, he would have limited people to choose from. He would end up going with people like Tokiyami, people like Ochako, Mei Hatsume, and stuff like that. And then eventually what he would do is he would tell them that they need to be patient and be ready and to jump when he says to jump. Now, as he says this, they're a little bit confused, but he puts on a kind of a levitation potion, and a potion that would allow them to float, at least for the moment, about 30 seconds. And he would begin to basically spam blocks underneath their feet, and it would build this giant pillar. And as the levitation potion would stop, he would tell them to land on the block and to be careful, in which they would do just that, landing on the block. And the block's pretty big, so it's not like they're trying to, barely land on it. And then Izuku would build a little structure, and they would just sit down. They're not out of bounds. They're not, doing anything illegal. And literally nobody can touch them, and it's an automatic win. In which Mei is immediately convinced that this kid is some sort of special technological whiz, which she doesn't know, but it's absolutely insane. Like, how the hell is he able to do these things? How is he able to place these odd-looking blocks? How is he able to make them float? Like, this doesn't even make sense. This defies all laws of gravity. Like, seriously, like, people would pay good money to have, structure that can float. Like, that is absolutely insane. In which Izuku kind of shrugs his shoulders, saying that he doesn't really understand the nitty gritty and the details, you could say. But hey, they're here and it works. Which he kind of just shrugs them off on it, because he doesn't really know how to explain his own quirk as well. Like, this is very confusing for him too, right? So Izuku kind of just tells him, hey, he does his best, he does what he can with what he can work with and stuff like that. Which they would win the cavalry battle, and even everybody in the audience would be shocked, a little bored, but also kind of impressed, right? Because yes, it was a little boring. He kind of just sat up there, but it was also impressive that Izuku has a plethora of things that allow him to, for the most part, just be ready for almost every situation. And that would even include something like the 1-versus-1 battles. Because in terms of raw strength, raw power, durability, and stuff like that, Izuku's ready for it. And he goes one-on-one with someone like Shinso. He's ready to take on Shinso immediately. And since people really do like Izuku, like, he's a pretty cool dude, they do tell him that basically Shinso can brainwash you. That for the most part, that's what the guy does. So once he gets that information, he easily is able to defeat Shinso, and swiftly does it. Doesn't even really need armor like that, right? Izuku's pretty skilled in hand-to-hand combat, nothing crazy, but he kind of just for the most part, whacks him, and then it's kind of over. He makes sure that he doesn't hurt the guy super bad, but he does whack him and get him out of there pretty quickly. But his next battle is going to be a far tougher one, especially when he has Endeavor, the father of Todoroki, telling him that he needs to get his son to use his fire side, and that he will give him what he wants and give him maybe an agency spot or something like that if he does do this. Izuku says that he'll do, whatever. Like, he doesn't really care to try and help Endeavor necessarily. Like, he's going to help his so-called friend out, and he's going to make sure that he gets the most out of him. But it's not because of Endeavor. It's not because he's trying to make him, be a better parent and, have this bond once again. Like, he doesn't care, right? He wants to make that very known. And at the end of the day, Izuku makes it very clear that he's not doing it for him, he's doing it for Todoroki. So, what do they do? And what happens? Well, Izuku goes head to head with Todoroki, and he tries to make him use his fire side. But of course, this isn't the easiest thing in the world, and he kind of struggles to do so. And the ice powers that he has, well, they're pretty damn impressive, and they're actually kind of hard for Izuku to deal with. Now, physically and stuff like that, in terms of speed, and he's able to kind of burst through the ice, but he does get a slow-like effect on him, and he just kind of slows down entirely when he gets hit by the ice, or when he gets really cold, or stuff like that. And frankly, it's a little bit annoying, just a little bit, but nonetheless, he's still able to power through it with how fast and strong he really is. And he even tells Todoroki, like, he's going to need more than just this, and that he's not going to win with what he's using. And there's multiple reasons for that, because, well, Izuku himself, he's not just some powerhouse running at you full steam ahead, right? He could use other means. And Izuku begins to shoot and fly around with his elytra. He begins to shoot his arrows at Todoroki, making it extremely hard for Todoroki to even touch him. And Izuku tells him that he's going to have to give it his entire all, and even his all might not be good enough. And that's just the reality, and that's the reality of this world, in which Todoroki would get kind of frustrated by this, but then he would realize that he really does need to utilize this other side of him. He needs to utilize his fire side, and that's what he does. He utilizes his fire side, blasting a large just blast of fire and ice at Izuku, but the fire side is the only part that actually hits him, and it covers Izuku entirely. Everybody is in a standstill. There's no way. He landed a full blast of that fire on him directly. I mean, that's going to kill the kid. He's dead. There's no way. But as the fire would dissipate, Izuku wouldn't even be touched. Izuku would begin to laugh at Todoroki and say that he was waiting for him to use this fire side, but he was also prepared for the fire side, showing something that looks like an odd looking potion that Izuku actually splashed on himself right before it hit him, being that of a fire resistance potion. Izuku says that this potion itself is enough to allow him to swim in lava. That's how strong it is. In which he tells him that the fire side was never going to do something to him, but he wanted to see what Todoroki was truly capable of, and he wanted to see, well, what kind of level he was truly at. Todoroki would then be in complete shock, so much so that Izuku would dash at him and knock him out of the ring. This would lead Izuku to basically beating Todoroki, and everybody celebrating and cheering Izuku on, and his next battle would be against Tenya Ida. But this fight would be nowhere near as difficult as the Todoroki one because of the slowness of the the ice and stuff. And after this fight, he would finally have a chance to take on his childhood bully by the name of Bakugo. Bakugo would be excited but also angry at the same time, he wanting to smash Izuku to the ground. But what he doesn't know is that this fight in itself was over the day that they basically both got their quirks. Izuku, well, he knows that Bakugo stands no chance, and it's not even a close one, as Izuku would approach him and tell him that this armor that he holds, the armor that he has on him, well, let's just say is going to make it so he's utterly useless. Izuku watches as Bakugo tries to shoot him with explosion after explosion, but not even a scratch on Izuku, not even a little tiny scratch. Izuku would walk toward him and tell him that it seems like he's the useless one right now. All the bullying, all the making fun of, all the teasing and all the messing with, it's all over now, because Bakugo is just that much worse than himself. He's so below Izuku that he doesn't even deserve to be in the same ring as him. Izuku tells him that he might as well walk off the stage now, because this fight is so far over. In which Bakugo tries his best, shooting explosions, even shooting the most giant explosion he possibly can. But no, nothing will work. Izuku gives him a little nod and tells him that, well, it seems like this armor has really helped him quite a bit. Quite a bit. And it's something he's been preparing for quite a while. Something that he didn't even bring up at all. And it's something like well, explosive resistance. Now, he nods toward Bakugo once again, saying that this was personally made for him. He wasted a lot of experience on this specifically just so that he could do this to Bakugo. Just so that he can understand how far gone he truly is. Everybody's in shock because they never have seen Izuku so serious and so like determined, and also on top of that so cocky in a way. But it seems like Bakugo really does deserve this, and Bakugo is kicked out of the ring, and Izuku Midoriya is your winner of the UA Sports Festival, just like that, in which everybody celebrates, and Izuku would put away his armor, and he would basically cheer, or basically kind of celebrate with everybody who's currently celebrating as well. Now, with the UA Sports Festival over, a lot of people are on the radar, or Izuku has a lot of people looking at him in terms of agencies and in terms of just trying to get him in their agency, right? Izuku is a hot commodity. Everybody's like, oh, we need to get this guy. This guy, he's a different level. Like he's a surefire top 10 hero when he graduates. That's how good this guy is, right? We all need to really get him on kind of our side, right? We need to get him ready to go and get him in our agency however we possibly can, because this guy is going to be the next level, next generation of just heroes. At the end of the day, we are now dealing with a new era, and this era is an era that Izuku is going to really live off of, right? Izuku is completely in a different stratosphere, and not even because he's so much stronger than everyone else, because it's not like right now he's not like some All Might level threat or anything, but it's more because of what he brings to the table, right? He has these potions, he has this utility, he has basically the ability to make as much money as he absolutely wants. Like if he wanted to, he can make his own agency, and that's why, well, Izuku's not too fond of just working with these other agencies, because to him, he wants to actually be the person that runs the agency, right? Like he wants to be that dude. And that's the type of person Izuku is. I mean, he has the money for it. He can definitely make his own agency, but he just lacks the hero license and stuff like that. But don't get it twisted. People see this as a commodity. Maybe they'll even give Izuku a stake in the agency, kind of give him, you know, like a partial portion of the agency, maybe 20, 30%, shoot, maybe more, depending on the circumstance. But of course, dealing with that and a kid, at the end of the day, we are dealing with a kid. It's something that agencies are gonna be not necessarily too interested in chatting about, at least at the moment, right? And Izuku's kind of, you know, in a different mind state and a mindset than everyone else. But still, where can he learn the best from? That's where he's thinking about, and that's what he is thinking about. So when he looks through all of his agencies that reach out to him after the UA Sports Festival, he sees one that really catches his eye, and that's, well, would be Mirko. And it might sound odd because, well, what does she relate to him at all? But Izuku believes that his weakest aspect is his hand-to-hand combat, and he believes that if he can learn more hand-to-hand combat, that this will more or less massively increase just how good he is for the most part, like how good he truly can be in most, if not all, scenarios. So that's kind of what he's thinking about, and that's where the mindset is. And he decides to work with Mirko, and it's hard freaking work because she's kind of a psychopath, he learns. And she doesn't really care about anything involving his special techniques or, oh yeah, like I could do this, I could do that. She doesn't really care. She doesn't. All she cares about is being able to absolutely beat people up, and that's it. That's what she's really good at doing. And frankly, it's something that basically that's going to happen, right? So they go hand to hand, you know, combat a lot, working out together and just boxing and learning new fighting styles. And Izuku does learn her fighting style for the most part. And yeah, it was it's pretty fruitful for the most part, and pretty fruitful just overall. And Izuku just, you know, finds kind of progress in this. He finds a lot of progress in kind of just working with Mirko and just getting stronger and getting better at hand-to-hand combat, just in general. Now, this is when they would do a bit of patrolling, and Mirko would decide to take him to Hosu City, actually. And this would be a pretty high crime rate place, and he would believe that, you know, this is probably a good kind of place, or she would think it was a good place for him to kind of learn and get a feel for some of these people, right? Some of these people that are on the worst side of things, that's for sure. And they're not very good people by any means, and they're kind of, you know, the worst of the worst, you could almost say. Hosu City is a pretty bad place, and that's where they knew, and that's where they went. So of course, they would run into some bad people, but what they didn't know they would run into is a lot more than just that. It seems like the League of Villains begin to lay siege to Hosu City in a way, but there's a reason for this. No moves would begin running wild, and Mirko would help out to her best of her ability, kind of knocking out and subduing as many people as possible. But Izuku would eventually learn and hear of this one person by the name of Tenya Ida, and of course he did fight him, and they're somewhat friends. I mean, they're, you know, here and there. And Izuku knows that there is something going on, something that is, let's just say, not very good, right? Izuku knows that Tenya Ida is hunting down the hero killer, and when he begins searching for him and trying to find basically what's going on and if he can actually help Tenya Ida, he finds him and he's almost dead. Tenya is on the ground with the hero killer's sword about to be plunged into him, and Izuku's able to react to this pretty quickly. He's able to get to the hero killer and begins to clash swords with the hero killer. Izuku would then throw a potion at the hero killer and then throw another one. As he does these things, the hero killer is confused. What the hell is he throwing on him? And he realizes that he is so much slower and feels so much weaker. On top of this, he would get thrown another potion that would poison the hero killer and hurting him over and over again, and Izuku would go and grab Tenya Ida and try to get out of there. The hero killer tries to actually close the distance and tries to stop Izuku, but again, Izuku stops him in his tracks, pulling out a shield and blocking the attack entirely that is coming his way. Izuku would get basically Tenya to a safe distance, and then eventually he would hear somebody running over the rooftops, and that person, well, would land a clean kick right to the face of the hero killer, being that of Mirko. Mirko would tell him that, you know, she didn't teach him all of those things just for him to throw some silly potions at the guy. And Izuku shrugs his shoulders and says that, I mean, you know, habits die hard, and he did what he had to do. In which he does help her for the most part, but Mirko has it handled, especially with a massively weakened, slowed, and poisoned hero killer. The hero killer would be subdued and knocked out. Luckily, Tenya would be healed up very quickly by Izuku with some healing potions, or some instant health potions, and of course he would come to his senses. Mirko would help them all get away from all of this area, and she would tell him that normally he would be in trouble because he is working without a hero license, but they will keep it on the hush and hush, and at the end of the day, she did swoop in and defeat him, so no harm, no foul, right? Izuku would nod and thank her, of course, in which she would point at Tenya Ida, though, and say that whatever he did, though, he's gonna have to be punished for it, like seriously. And they're gonna be told, or UA is gonna be told exactly what occurred, at least in terms of what happened with Tenya and what happened even with Izuku, but Izuku should be fine. He won't be in trouble at all. Now, this would lead them down to basically dealing with the punishment of Tenya, and Tenya would be, for the most part, just completely kind of just apologetic for what he did. He realizes now he's being stupid, and Izuku makes it very clear that he was being very stupid. And yes, he gets it. He understands that he's hurting because of his brother and stuff like that, but there could have been things that they could have gotten done. They could have done something. They didn't have to take it to that drastic measure, right? They didn't have to do what he was going to do. He wanted to kill the guy and almost got killed himself, and it's just not something that they wanted to look forward to. But nonetheless, Izuku and everybody else would head back to UA with the internships cut a little bit short, but nonetheless, it would lead them down the path to the final exams leading up to the forest training camp. And well, Izuku is going to be taking on one of the biggest challenges he has to date, and something that he's not going to be expecting after the written portion, and that's with a battle against All Might. But he'll have a partner that he will never want in his life, and that's Katsuki Bakugo. But for now, that's going to have to wait for part 3 of What If Deku Had a Minecraft Quirk. And if you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. All that good stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And yeah, that's all I got to say. I hope all you guys enjoyed the video. And I hope all you guys have an amazing day. Later.